Hello and welcome to Matrix IT's Cybersecurity Fundamentals course. This is a module on how to create a strong password. My name is Frank Fazio and I will be your instructor. Well, this is a biggie. This is the module on passwords. I'm going to start off by saying right now, passwords are broken. They've been broken for a while. This is why we use our thumbprint to get into our phone, and this is why we use facial recognition as another way to get into our phone. It's too hard to remember these passwords. It's too hard to make complex passwords. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a strong password, and that's what this module is on. I also have another module that we are doing on multi-factor authentication and one on password managers. So what you want to do is you want to take all three of these modules and use them together. You want to create a password, you want to keep it in a password manager, and you want to back it up with multi-factor authentication. That's how that works, okay? At work, they may not have multi-factor authentication yet, or even a password manager, but I'm going to give you some ideas on how to do a good strong password. And then we'll talk about the password manager in the other module. Okay, so we have to do the definition. All right, here it is. A password is a secret word or phrase that must be used to gain admission to something. Very simple. That is probably the shortest definition you're going to get in these modules. Everybody knows what a password is, okay? A password is what we type in every day at work. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to reiterate it, and I'm going to put it in my last page of this module. You need to make sure your work password is unique, okay? You got to do me the solid, okay? If you want one thing to come back from this module, if you want one thing to remember, your work password needs to be unique, okay? And I'm saying this because when you reuse your password and you reuse it out on all these other websites, and those other websites get hacked, that password now to your work is out there. That password at work needs to be unique. Do me that solid, okay? That's what a password is. That's your definition, okay? So the top 30 passwords that I came up with here, this is off of Wikipedia. They do, I think, 100. But I wanted to give you a little insight. So passwords get hacked all the time on the internet. And so what security researchers do is they go out, they take all of these hacked passwords, and then, they go through and they say, okay, what's the most popular one? What's the second most popular one? Blah, blah, blah. And they make these lists. It's pretty funky. Your password that you're currently using should not be in this list. Okay. If the password that you constantly use at work is in this list, we can't be friends. Okay. Do not use any of the passwords in here. And some of these passwords you can anyways because they force capitals and all that kind of stuff. But this goes to show you, number one is always something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, password, number 3 is moving up. And number 5 is moving up because a lot of websites are causing you to use more characters, right? So they increase the characters. Dragon, monkey, let me in. These ones here, they change from year to year. When Trump was president, Trump was one of them, or Donald was one of the passwords. QWERTY, UIOP, that's basically the first line on the top of your keyboard there. Where's the other one? The other one is this one here. 1QAZ, 2WSX, and that is diagonal on your keyboard, starting from the number 1, going down to Z, X, and then back up to 2. Okay. This here, I had to blank out because it was a bad word, and I'm surprised there were not more bad words in here. But yeah, you can't use these. Don't, because these are the first things that the hacker's going to try to get into, and I'll explain that in a little bit. All right. So now, when hackers are trying to get into your account or get your password, there's a number of different ways. So I want to show you this here, and hopefully you can see, but I'll basically tell you the gist of it. It's a password profiler, and what it does, it asks for information. So if I run this, okay, so it asks me for my name of the victim, the surname of the victim, or the target. I shouldn't say victim, target. So the name, surname, nickname, and birth date of the target. Okay, the wife, or the wife's name, or the spouse's name of the target, the name, nickname, birth date, the child's name of the target, name, nickname, birth date. Does the target have any pets? What are the names? Does the target, work for a certain company? Okay. Do you want to add some keywords about the victim? Do they like hockey? Do they like soccer? Stuff like that. Do you want to add special characters at the end of words? Do you want to add some random numbers at the end of words? Do you want, leet mode, which is changing, the letter I to a 1 and, the letter O to a 0 kind of thing, because we're so smart, like nobody's figured it out. So what this does when I run it with that information is it combines that information the way a human would. And what it would do is it's going to give me a file with every possible combination of that information. So if you're using, and this is why we say, don't use your birth date and your password. Don't use your wife or husband's name. Don't use your dog's name. This application, when run, will take all of that information that we're telling you not to use in your password, and it'll combine it and give me a file, like I said. So now I have a file of words. Those words are passwords. Okay, that's what you would think of. Your birth date's in there and all that. And it's mixed up, and it gives me a nice little file. Now, in this case here, it gives me about 11,000 different possibilities. Okay, what I do then is I take that file and I just start trying it on your password to see if it'll let me in. Okay, so a security researcher took this and he took 20 of his friends and he did a file on each one of his friends, right, based on their information. And he gave his friends a file and he said, tell me if your password's in here. Don't tell me what your password is, but tell me if your password's in it. And out of the 20 that he gave, 16 of them said, yes, the password's in there. My password's in there. So do not use personal information in your password, because this little program, like many of the ones out there, will start to finagle that information and possibly give me your password. Okay, so that's the one of the apps they use. It's called a Common User Password Profiler. If you want to look it up, don't look it up. Okay, don't look it up. You don't need to know it. Okay, just know what it does. Okay, so when we look at passwords, we're going to look at password length. Okay, so the security researcher Berserko, okay, he's a pretty cool guy. He took 32 million passwords out in the wild, and he compiled them. And he said, okay, so let's take a look at this. The length. So out of the 32 million passwords, the majority of them are between 8 and 12, right? 8 and 12, you're talking, what, 80% or so, right here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our passwords longer. We're going to come out here. These ones are easy with the technology these days. Out here, it just takes too long. As a hacker, I would have fun with just maybe these people here. Okay, and like I said, it's not worth me going and spending the time trying to use technology to figure out. The longer it is, the harder it's going to be for me to compute it. Okay, so we're going to make them longer. We're going to come out here maybe 14, 15. How do we do this now? Because I know you're going to say, oh, there's no way that I can, remember that. And you're right. You're 100% right. But what you can do is you can use a phrase instead of a one-word password. A phrase, a song title, a book quote, your favorite movie quote, a poem, maybe a line out of your favorite poem. You can actually come up with sentences and phrases as your password. Okay, so you're lengthen the password. All right, so that's the length. If you want to see the character order, okay, the character order now is letters and letters and a number. right? That's the majority of them. And there's other orders too, but what we're doing here is letters and a number. The reason why we're doing that is because when we ask you to change your password, when IT says you need to change your password, it's been 3 months or 6 months, all you do is change a number on the end. Everybody's doing it. Okay, so we're constantly just adding one to the end of the number on our password. So you know what? Numbers, letters, numbers, something like that. If you want to do it, if you want to do a phrase, you do special characters in the front. Put a couple exclamation marks. Put a couple exclamation marks on the front of your sentence. Okay, um, don't make it easy, right? Put some characters, and I know you have to follow a certain. You gotta have a big letter, small letter, character. We're driving our users nuts with trying to do that. Use a phrase. Here's an idea. Put a space in your passwords. Okay, some systems will actually allow you to put a space in your password. So if you have a sentence, just put spaces in. You can remember a sentence, right? So it's just little things like that. Now, when I was talking about, um, you know, creating that file, so I put in all this information about you, and it cranks out a file that it thinks, based on that information, this is what their passwords could be, right? The passwords in these file, could possibly be one of their passwords. There are passwords on everything. There's files with passwords on everything. Okay, so these are just some of the things I scraped off the internet. This one right here, Bible.txt, has every word in the Bible. Here's the best 110. Here's alleged Gmail passwords that have been cracked. Ashley Madison. We may talk about Ashley Madison in another module. I haven't decided if I want to talk about that one yet. All the passwords for Ashley Madison, and then you got stuff like 10 million password lists, the top 10,000. No, that's 100,000. Okay, so there's all of these different files out there with just common words or other passwords that I'm going to try and pepper your account with. Okay, so I have a password list. I have a dictionary file. It's got about 2 billion passwords in it that have been out in the wild. The latest one that I remember seeing is 8 billion passwords. And I'm not going to even download that one. 8 billion passwords is a lot of passwords. It's a huge file. But again, they're floating out there, so chances are your password's in there somewhere, right? This is why we back it up with two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, and that's in a different module, okay? But we're just going to talk about passwords here. So these are dictionary files. Reusing passwords, okay? So when I talk about reusing passwords, there's a reason why, okay? So these here are websites that have been hacked in the past, okay? Or data breaches, if you want to call them a data breach. Yahoo let 3 billion accounts out, okay? Usernames, passwords. MySpace, nobody uses MySpace anymore. But if you did use it at one time and you're still using that old password, well, the password's going to be in that file. eBay, LinkedIn, AOL, Facebook, Gmail, all of these have had, an exposure somewhere down the line, right? So those passwords are out there. This is why I'm saying your work password, please make it unique. You don't want to be the person that lets someone in to your work network because you reused your password somewhere else. Okay, just make that one unique. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because I get a lot of comments I get. One of them is, okay, yeah, so you have my password. So how do you know where I am on the internet? How do you know where to go to try to use that password? So there's an app. My buddy, he's a car hacker. He sent me this in a group chat. I have a group chat of a number of hackers, and so he sends this to our group, and he's like, I cannot believe this is the coolest thing that ever existed. So he hadn't slept for 3 days. I haven't slept for 3 days. So It's called Sherlock. Okay, and there's other ones on the web that you can get. So what it is this. So if I get your let's say I come across your Yahoo username or your email address, but your username and your password. So now I have a username and I have a password. I'll go over to Sherlock, right? And what it does is see checking username. I put that user in here, that user, the username that I got on you, and I run this, and it will check. I think it's like 300 social media websites to see if that username is a member. Okay, so then it says Instagram. Okay, that's that. So it gives me all these links. And my buddy, he wasn't trying to hack people. What he was doing is he was looking up his friends, right? He had his friends' usernames. He didn't have their passwords, but he just was like, oh, I didn't know Frank had an Instagram account because it basically, if you're using that username is going to show up in here. So theoretically, if I have your like a username from here or here or here, and I start looking at it, I'll just try the corresponding password to see if I can get in. Okay, this is why it's very, very important we don't reuse our passwords. Um, and password managers is going to help. So that module, check out that module, and it'll show you how to keep all your passwords unique, and then you don't even have to remember them. It does it for you automatically. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. That was a crazy day when that one came out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this website. Okay, and this is going to help you out when it comes to seeing if your password's out there. Now we're not going to put our passwords in here. Okay, it's Have I Been Pwned? Security researcher. He takes care of this. Um, what he does is he takes a lot of the exposed data, puts it into a database, and then you can search it. And the way you do that is you put in here. If you go to Have I Been Pwned, you put in your email address or your phone number. Do not put your password in here. Okay, so you put your email address in here, your Yahoo email or your Gmail email. Um, and if you click on pwned here, what's going to happen below here? It's going to either turn red or green. Okay, if it turns red, that means that username or that email or that phone was in an exposure somewhere. Okay, and it'll tell you where it was exposed. All you got to do, you don't need to freak out. All you do is you go to, like, if you put your Gmail username in there and it shows a certain site that you use that Gmail email at, just go to that website, right? So if it says Netflix, yeah, you showed up in the Netflix one. Just go to Netflix and change your password. It's you don't have to freak out or anything like that. Just go and change your password. If it's green, you're good. Okay. Um, this is a really cool website. A lot of my guys use it. You can also sign up, and what you do is you put your email address in there, and it will keep tabs on it for you. So if that email address ever shows up in an exposure with a password, it'll email you and say, you know what, you might want to change your password in on this website because it's just been exposed. All right, haveibeenpwned.com. Okay, so how are we going to protect ourselves? Okay, there's a couple things we can do. Here we go. This is the last slide, and this is what I told you I was going to talk to you about again. Your work password must be unique, okay? Because you don't want it to get out. All right, I'm sure you have a lot of IT guys that do a lot of work to keep you secure. You don't want to just give out your password. Do not use personal information in passwords. Now, I showed you an app that takes that information, and what it does, it compiles it and it makes a file for me. All right. If you don't use personal information in your password, that program is useless. Okay. Don't use anything that ties back to you. Don't use single dictionary words. Okay. And I know it's going to make you, there's complexity and capitals and stuff. Don't use dictionary words because there's, like I showed you, there's files out there with every word in the English dictionary. And if you think you're smart because you're using a French word or a German word, there's files with that out there too. Okay, there's a file out there with every German word, and I'll try that. Okay, so don't use dictionary words. Okay. Don't use the same password for multiple websites. Like I said, we're going to talk about password managers in another module. Password managers will keep track of all your passwords for you, and you can make them anything you want because you never have to remember them. All right, it'll just log you in, and I'll explain that when we do that module. That will help you not reuse your password. We're going to use long phrases. Okay, so like I said, we're going to use sentences. We're going to use book titles, song titles, a favorite movie quote, something that you can remember, and put spaces in there, but make them longer. Okay, if there's you have to use a specific, you have to use a password for work, for instance, right? Use a longer password. Okay, I've talked to a lot of IT guys. There was an IT guy I talked to, and I did this. I was talking to him, and he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "I use a whole sentence and I put spaces in it." Right? And he's an IT guy. Right? He knows. So make them longer. We're going to use two-factor authentication, a password manager. Again, those are two modules that we're going to talk about at a later time. Using those two things, and if you have to reuse your password, multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication will help you out. But you're going to use those two things plus a strong password, and you're going to be a lot harder to hack. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take you out of the low-hanging fruit, if I can use that term, and we're going to want to move you up a level or two. Okay, let everybody else that is not using longer passwords, let them deal with the hackers. Just let's move you up a little bit, okay? And of course, if you're having trouble, and this is a pretty cool site, if you're having trouble coming up with a password, this website here I found, it will actually give you a couple random words, and they put it together. And then you can use those as your passwords if you want. It's pretty clear. If you can't think of anything, you can go there and pick random or pick generate password or something like that, and it'll just go into some sort of word list and put a bunch of words together, and you might be able to use it for one of your passwords. And with that, that wraps up the passwords module. Again, stay safe, stay frosty, and I'll see you in the next module.